Hello, everyone. We are here for another episode of All About America's Team. This episode is, I guess, a reality check for us Cowboys fans because the Cowboys are not 5-1. They are 4-2 because unfortunately they suffered a unfortunate defeat last night in Philadelphia, 26-17. We are here to discuss that. I am Ray Nickens, joined with, as always,
Owen the Chico.
and we are here to just break down everything that happened last night. There's not much news other than the Cowboys lost last night, so I guess if that's the news of the day, we're going to go with that. But let's jump right in. Just some quick points of order. Cooper Rush threw 3 interceptions, had less than 200 passing yards. The Cowboys defense did not have a takeaway, and really, Micah Parsons did not have a sack either. Trayvon Diggs did not have an interception, no takeaways, and Jalen Hurts pretty much had a very pedestrian game. He just did not turn the ball over, and the Eagles were very efficient running the football and did basically whatever they wanted to against the Cowboys defense when it comes to running the football. So that was one of those things that both of us were a little concerned about is whether or not the Cowboys defense had fixed their run defense, and unfortunately, it looks like they have not fixed their run defense, even though they have the most or the best personnel in their front four or five or whatever you want to call it that they've had in a while. So I will still once again come playoff time be one of the main weaknesses of this defense, and we'll just have to wait and see what team we draw in the postseason. But those are just kind of quick points of order. I'm sure I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which is the backup quarterback who turned the ball over 3 times. Um, the first 2 interceptions. While Skip Bayless may want to call the first one not on him, he threw it into quadruple coverage. And when you throw it into quadruple coverage, the ball is most likely going to be tipped up in the air. And ultimately, when you're playing a team that is 14-2 in the turnover department, 14 being they've taken away 14 times and 2 being they've turned it over 2 times, they're more than likely going to come down with the football. So that was just not a good idea. The second one was a terrible interception. And then ultimately after that, I thought he settled down in the end of the second quarter. They should have scored a touchdown on the drive before the half, but they ended up getting 3. And then the first two drives were touchdown, and it was 20-17. And ultimately, the defense, who has been the saving graces of the season, were unable to stop the Eagles' offense when it came to running the football. And the Eagles marched down the field, chewed up half of the fourth quarter, and scored a touchdown, making it a 2-possession game once again. And thankfully, thankfully got cute and did not get the 2-point conversion after a bogus, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty by Trayvon Diggs, which he was on the completely opposite side of the defense. I guess he got upset with Anthony Brown for being dumb, but we all know that Trayvon Diggs has been very, very dumb very many times. So I don't know why he's showing up his teammate like that in the end zone. But it didn't really matter. They didn't score on the 2-point conversion, so it doesn't really matter that much. But next possession, Cooper Rush, he dropped back. The Tyler Smith, who had gotten destroyed all night, got beat badly by Devontae Graham. The last couple of weeks, Tyler Smith has looked like a rookie more times than he's looked like a veteran. He's been beaten a lot more frequently than he has in the first couple of starts that he had, and he got absolutely wrecked by Devontae Graham, who hit Cooper Rush right in the chest. It was legal. It was not a roughing the passer penalty, but Tom Brady would have gotten the call, but Cooper Rush is not Tom Brady. And he got there just in the nick of time because if he had not gotten there, CeeDee Lamb was wide open down the field. It would have been a touchdown or at least not an interception if he could get his followed through. And that turned out to be the game-ending interception. Honestly, I think CeeDee Lamb gave up on the play way too early. He could have easily come back to the ball and at least saved the drive. He kind of was standing there on the sideline, made a half-hearted effort to get to the ball. I don't really know why he would do that, especially when it's the end of the game. And I mean, he could have at least tried to get to it. I don't really know what was going through his mind, but I guess maybe he had just been getting his butt worked by Darius Slay all night, and he just kind of didn't want, or he wasn't in the mood to bail his quarterback out. So it was a short arm throw, intercepted, game over. But ultimately, I'm not too upset with the loss because it tells me it told me a couple of things. Number one, they were down 20-0. The man on the screen with me was blowing up my phone, telling me how it was going to get ugly. They were going to lose 38-3. It was going to be a disaster blow, and I was kind of ignoring him because I knew that the game was going to end up being close, which it was, and it really told me that one, the Cowboys and the Eagles are not that far apart, because Cooper Rush played his worst game by far with the 3 turnovers, and still they were basically one play away from making things interesting in the last 5 minutes of the game, and a stop away from having the ball with a chance to take the lead or a tie if the defense got that stop when it was 20-17 with a quarter and some change left. But yeah, that's the first thing. And then the second thing, a little bit more negative, is Mike McCarthy is still not the guy, because I don't really know what he was thinking, not challenging the obvious first down that CeeDee Lamb had. He rushes, he stretches his hand out. I knew it was a first down watching the game. I'm sure if you were watching the game at that point, you probably were sure it was a first down. And they hurry it up to the on 4th and inches. They hurry it up. They're on the line of scrimmage. And I'm thinking, why are they hurrying it up? If they give like the refs at least 15 seconds or 20 seconds, they're probably going to review it or just challenge it. You're going to get the challenge, get your timeout back. And instead of handing it off to Ezekiel Elliott, who, by the way, had his best game in 2 years yesterday, if you hand it off to Ezekiel Elliott, you're probably going to get the first down. Instead, they run a bootleg pass play, and it falls incomplete. Should have challenged it, but I mean, that it just showed me that the Eagles just have this edge that the Cowboys don't really have, and you see it in Nick Sirianni, who's fired up at the end of the game. Looks like he wants to rip someone's head off, and then they pan it over to Mike McCarthy, and he's just there with like this blank expression, like, where am I? What am I doing? And it just kind of, while there was hope that the Cowboys are not that far off, it just kind of tells me that come playoff time, this team is probably going to be in the same situation as it was last year, trying to come from behind and falling short and getting bounced in the first round. But the Cooper Rush experiment is definitely over now. Dak's going to come back. They're going to beat the Texans, the Jaguars, the Bears, the Lions. That'll be 9 wins right there. They'll beat Washington as well again. They'll probably beat the Giants again because they have them at home. And Packers look terrible, so they'll probably beat them too. So I mean that's 11 or 12 wins right there, and they'll be a playoff team, and then we'll see what happens. So, but I mean Cooper Rush did his job. He got them, and they're over 500. Dak Prescott's good enough to beat bottom feeder teams, and we should be good to go for the next 6 weeks. We'll have some Sundays, some champagne after every week when the Cowboys blow out their opponent, and then we'll get serious late December.
Is it officially my turn now?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to break down what you said, but one of the first things that um, really stood out was talking about Nick Sirianni. Now, sure, like he can have all of his emotions, but at the end of the day, if you put the emotions aside, he was up 20-3 going into halftime, and the game ended 17-26. Now, personally, I feel like if that's not something to really brag about because you were down and before the Eagles go on that 13 play drive where they ran the ball 10 plus times, Dallas had all the momentum in the game. In my opinion, at least, I felt like. And for personally, top coaches don't let that happen. Obviously, Dallas does not have one of those coaches, so we can't really talk. But for if you look at the just like the box score, they obviously the Eagles were up 20-3 and then the score ended 26-17. So that's not and yeah, he was all fired up and everything like that, but I'm sure for most of the third quarter he was not all that amped up. Yeah, Tyler Smith, he hasn't looked great, but when he's going up against top perimeter guys, I did not expect him to bully everyone. Now, do I want him to be giving up these types of pressures? No, but he will learn and he'll get better. And I feel like he's done really well for the expectations that we had based off him playing tackle at Tulsa, but playing guard for a few months. And Ray and I have talked hours about that decision. Um, and yeah, I think that if you look at Philadelphia running wise, Miles Sanders had averaged 3.9 yards. So let's call it 4, and he looked good. I think that the beginning of the game or the first two quarters and the last two quarters, obviously two very different games. In the beginning, Rush had two really bad interceptions, and the defense was on the field for basically the whole game. And obviously, they're going to be gassed. And I think the Eagles did a really good job of with AJ Brown motioning. They did really well with him, and that's obviously going to throw off a defense. And I thought that okay, when I texted her, okay, like the Eagles obviously aren't going to stop this. Obviously, it's working. There's really no point to stop it, and they did. Not gonna lie, I got some false hope going into that. After the third quarter with Dallas running the ball, and yeah, Zeke did look good
It's
with that
just
carry.
really quickly. It's shocking that you had false hope with that. That backup undrafted free agent fraud Cooper Rush that you had. Even you, who is his biggest hater, was like, dang, they're down 3 points. He's gonna come back again and score another touchdown again and win the game again. And he lost the game, and now you're here disappointed,
Well,
just like me.
before I get before I go and tackle your thing. First of all, I meant to say this before I said anything else. Thank you, Cooper Rush. You did what no one, including me, really thought. And because of you, Dallas is third in the division, which is insane.
They're
And they have
four
a
and
fighting
two,
chance.
Owen. They're
Huh?
4-2. It's not their fault that the Eagles and the Giants have a better head coach
No, I'm
than the
not. I didn't mean
Cowboys.
that I didn't mean that sarcastically. I'm just saying like because obviously I was under the impression that Dallas is going to be where the Commanders are right now, like a bottom feeder. I'm just saying thank you for giving us a chance because in like 3 weeks there's a real possibility that Dallas could be number 2 or first.
It's a
So
very
thank you, Cooper
sarcastic way of
Rush.
saying a fighting chance
Yeah.
at third in the division.
Well, he did well, and I mentioned earlier on a few episodes ago and through text with Ray that Cooper Rush he has had some throws that should have been intercepted, and I think that uh a lot of people were talking about Cooper Rush being a pumpkin with like Cinderella and the horse carrier turning into a pumpkin at midnight, and that was eventually going to happen. And yeah, he did look a lot better once the game kind of settled down, but even with his 3 interceptions, Dallas had a chance, and you can either say that that was due to him playing better or just the Eagles not being what we really think they are. And I think that a big reason why Dallas had a lot of momentum or had a fighting chance going into halftime was because of Gardner Johnson, their strong safety that they traded for from the Saints. He was out with the hand injury for a little bit, and that allowed Dallas to kind of do more with their tight ends. And obviously, Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, they had some really big catches that gave Dallas life, and they were able to get they were able to put some points on the board. And one thing I think that Dallas did really well this draft was drafting Dalton Schultz replacement, because he is like a $13 million price tag, and you have two rookies who can replace what he does. They obviously have to clean up some of the penalties, but I think that you're gonna get two guys for $13 million cheaper that can do similar things. Um, yeah, Jalen Hurts didn't really have that great of a game. I think that the big thing that he really improved on was his ball security, but but Dallas never put him in a position to have to make errant throws. He was able to just go along. He only completed 15 passes. Um, but yeah, I think that the biggest thing with this game that led to Dallas losing was that 13 play drive where Dallas was only Dallas was only down 3, and then they ran the ball down their throat. And obviously no one expects a defense to be perfect for 5 or 6 games straight, but you would have liked to see Dallas do something more there. And I thought that the defensive line had a pretty good game. I'll have to go. I don't. It's frustrating that Dallas is able to have the ball get run down their throat. And then one thing, and then we can kind of talk about anything more in depth, is that this. Granted, Micah Parsons did look better when Lane Johnson went down, which is bound to happen because you have a top 5, top 10 defensive player going up against a backup right tackle. They they frustrated Micah Parsons a lot, and you could see that he was very angry. They were reading him on read options and going where he wasn't, and they were eliminating him from the game, and they were not allowing him to have as big of an impact as he usually does. And I hope that he is able to figure it out and learn and be better, because if this is a repeat of the Broncos game last year where teams can consistently eliminate Micah Parsons, then Dallas will be in a heap of trouble from now on. Now, granted, obviously Micah is a second-year player and he's done very well, so I know that he holds himself accountable, so I'm sure he'll be able to be better because of this, and I think the whole team will be better because of this. And yeah, and then last thing, there was a video of after the game Dak walking into the tunnel, and he was clapping, and you could kind of see that he was, I don't know what you would want to call it, whether he was amped up to be back for the Lions game or what, but quarterback one, regardless of how you feel about him, and obviously we don't want to see a repeat of week 1 Dak. We'd like to see, if we see a repeat of week 1 Dak, then this is going to be a rough season. But hopefully he can string together a few good practices and is able to start against Detroit and lead Dallas back onto another winning streak. Thoughts, Ray?
Yeah. So I wrote a couple points down that you mentioned, so I wouldn't forget. But first thing you said about the Eagles, Sirianni not being all amped up the entirety of the game. I mean, this is the NFL. Every team you play, even if you're up 20 to, I mean, we saw it like the Bucks. The Bucks lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday, which should not have happened. The Browns lost to I think like a seventh or undrafted third string quarterback by 15 plus points. So things are going to happen. You're going to blow leads, and the Cowboys are not slobs. They are a decent football team. Um, and the point that I was trying to make was, in spite of them losing their 20-0 lead and being in a dogfight with a quarter left, the Eagles, because they have an edge starting with their coaching staff that is just over what the Cowboys have, were able to, with no momentum, go down the field, chew the half of the fourth quarter, and take a 10 and regain their two score lead, which ultimately ended the game. That was kind of the point I was trying to make. Not necessarily the one sense of him being fired up at the end of the game. That was just an example of that edge being showed on the camera, where you see that, and typically you don't really see much from Mike McCarthy. You see it more from Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator. But that was just kind of the point I was trying to make. The second thing about the pumpkin, the pumpkin striking 12 at midnight, whatever. I mean, the first half definitely did look like a pumpkin. The second half was a lot better of a game for Cooper Rush. And I mean, I think that this is more of the shoulda, coulda, woulda. But I think if the Cowboys do get a stop there, I think they do end up winning the game. And we're sitting here, and the Eagles look like the biggest frauds ever. And Dak Prescott has a chance to never play football this season for the Cowboys. So, they just might immediately just sit down Dak for the foreseeable future for the Lions game, and then the Bears game, and then their bye, and then the Packers game. And we're in more the sense of the longer he wins, the longer Dak sits. But I mean, they were just waiting for that one loss, is what was going on. I think Dak could have played a week ago, but they were on the train of, the more we win, the longer Dak's not going to play, and that was kind of the thing that was going on. And I mean, that's my opinion, and that's just kind of how it looked, because Dak was out there throwing pregame, and he made sure everybody knew, last week, that he was ready to go, and his grip pressure was good, and he was all set and fired up and ready to get back out there, and was excited to see what the offense could do with everyone healthy, which was a full-on shot at the backup quarterback. So that was just him telling everyone that he was ready to go, even though the Cowboys were telling him he was not ready to go, which was a total lie. They just wanted to ride the backup as long as they could. That's just kind of my point on that. And then,
Can I give rebuttal to that comment?
sure.
I think that when he broke his thumb, the only person that was saying that he was going to come back very quickly was Jerry Jones. He had a 6 to 8 week time frame or something like that. And yeah, I understand. I think Skip Bayless said that that was a dig at Cooper. I'm not saying that's where you got it from. I just know I heard that comment before. Now, whether it was that or whether it was, huh?
I mean, I read his quote, which is, "I'm excited to see what our offense can do when we are fully healthy," and he's the only one who's hurt, other than Tyron Smith. And
There are other players that are hurt, and sure, it could have been, but I don't think it's that, because if Michael Parsons and Trayvon Diggs went on the Ryan Clark podcast, and they were talking about how Dak has, ever since he was hurt, he was in the film room with Cooper Rush, breaking down defenses, breaking down coverages and everything. And if a player that was waiting for the downfall of the backup. I don't think that quarterback would have been in there helping him be better, because obviously you're not going to want a guy who people are saying can threaten your position. You wouldn't want them to be better at things. So it could have been, personally. I don't think that Dak is that type of guy, especially because he's only, a lot of the reasons why he was able to Mississippi State, Dallas, is because of injuries. So I just don't think that he would have had that type of um meaning. And maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? No one's ever going to know. Um, but that's my thoughts. And for Dak, he had swelling for several weeks. You're obviously not going to put him out there with swelling. And Dak, we're talking about the same guy who, after the Tampa Bay game, said, "Oh yeah, I'll be fine for next week." And then statements came out that he broke his thumb. Or after the calf strain, like, "Oh, I'm fine." And obviously his calf strain was um, a lot bigger of a deal than he made it to be. Or the last preseason with his baseball injury, he said, "Oh, it's nothing," but obviously they didn't let him play because it was something. Or with his when he broke his ankle 2 years ago and he banged it against the turf, he wants to play, and obviously who wouldn't want to play? And you can say, "Oh, well, he's worth $40 million, so he must play." But sure, you could say that Cooper Rush gave Dallas a better chance to win, but that's only because his throwing thumb isn't inflamed and have swelling. And Dak did. I don't think that was some media thing. He was out there throwing with practice squad guys. Alex Linderstorm, a practice squad player. Dennis Houston, a practice squad player. If it was, I think that if he wanted that to be a media thing, he would have been front and center. And that's not what. Even after he had throwing session for like 20, 30 minutes, he hugged all the players and was like, "Thank you," because he hadn't been able to throw, at least to the media, at least. So I don't think that was some like coming out party, like, "Oh, look at me." Um, and we'll see if he can have a practice. And Mike McCarthy said 2 weeks ago, whether who hates him or doesn't, he was like, "I want Dak to practice for a week, like getting actual first team reps before he plays." And he hasn't gotten first team reps, so obviously he's not going to play. He still has the bandage on his right thumb, so he was in no condition to play, regardless of what he says. And I learned after the thumb thing to no longer really trust what he says about injuries, because he's always going to want to be out there. But that's just my 2 cents. So I don't think that was an attack on Cooper. It might have been. No one really knows what his intentions were. And I also don't think that was a like an attack on Cooper, like, "Oh, I can play now, everybody see me, like I can throw the ball too." Because if that's what it was, I think that he would have thrown the ball more in practice. I think that he would have been that's just not how I view him. But you can either rebuttal my rebuttal or move on to your next point.
Well, I'm going to respond to the rebuttal, not necessarily shoot it down. I was not saying that he went out there to throw as a media stunt. He went out there to throw because he was going out to throw. And you say that the reason, all the guys who go out before the game an hour, 30 minutes before, are guys who are probably not going to play, hence the Jalen Tolbert instance where he goes out and works out before the game and then ends up not suiting up. He wasn't going out there to show for the whole entire media stunt. He was going out there to throw because he believed that he was ready to play. And he wanted to, and as a quarterback, there's going to be media out there. They immediately on the telecast after Cooper Rush had thrown his second interception are talking about Dak Prescott was out on the field and he was throwing before the game and he looked pretty good. And last week he shook my hand and was like, "How's my grip strength, Phil?" or whatever his name was. Those like that means he's a competitor. He wants to play. And I'm sure there's a part of him who was wanting to be out there and playing, and he went out there and he was just like, look, see, I can throw the ball just fine. That's just the individualistic aspect of it. I wasn't saying he was trying to show up anybody. He was just showing people he could throw and he was ready. Um, the first thing about the whole taking a shot at Cooper Rush, quarterbacks, especially like all quarterbacks, have very big egos. Um, and like a lot of quarterbacks are going to go out there and if the backup is winning games, they're going to be threatened because if every starting quarterback knows that, and I mean, and like you said, Dak experienced it himself, and that's not gonna he's not gonna feel sympathetic for Cooper Rush because of and be like, oh well, this is how I got my starting gig, so I'm just gonna be really helpful. He knows from his own experience of getting the job that if the backup quarterback is playing well and they get on a stride and they're winning and the flow is good, that there's a chance that he might not see the field again. I'm not saying that he purposely went into the press conference to take a shot at Cooper Rush. I'm saying that he's a competitor and he wants to be out there. And he said, "Hey, I know how great we can be when I come back and we're healthy." And that came out as a shot at Cooper Rush because it is basically a shot at Cooper Rush because the only other player who is hurt is Tyler Smith and Dalton Schultz, who's played most of the last 5 weeks, just not very well. The X factor of the situation is the quarterback, and it's reading between the lines. That's what he's talking about. Is when he gets back healthy, we are going to elevate our play so much to where we're going to be unstoppable, and that comes out him saying. And I mean, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm sure when Tony Romo was down and Dak Prescott was winning all these games, he was thinking in the back of his mind, "I'm better than this Joker, this Joker." But he still helped him out and still was a good teammate and still made sure the Cowboys were in position to win. Dak Prescott did the same thing. I mean, even remember when in 2014 when they were saying that the Cowboys might draft Johnny Manziel or whatever, and Tony Romo came out and said nobody's taking my job. Like, I don't care who they draft, they're not better than me, and they're not taking my job. That's the quarterback and everybody. Tom Brady probably thinks that their backup is a scrub. Aaron Rodgers thinks his backup is a scrub.
Well, because his
Justin
backup is
Herbert
a
probably
scrub.
thinks his backup is a scrub. Joe Burrow probably thinks his backup is a scrub. Every starting quarterback thinks that their backup's a joker, and if they're all in the same position where the backup's winning games, they're going to feel threatened too because they know what would happen. There's been a lot of stories going back to 92 or 91 or whatever when Troy Aikman got hurt, and this is before our time. And Steve Berline was the QB, and he won 6-7 straight games, and it came to the point where they were in the postseason, and Troy Aikman was ready to go, and Jimmy Johnson was like, "Now you're going to sit, and we're going to start the backup." And that's what can happen sometimes. You get on the hot hand, you don't want to mess it up, so you stick with the backup. And that's what I was saying, that if the Cowboys stole this game, that could have been the scenario that occurred where they were going to use that momentum of smashing a 20-0 deficit and coming back, and they were going to ride out with Cooper Rush and not give Dak the chance to start next week. So that's what I was going to say. If you want to rebuttal, that's great. And I was just going to kind of move on into the other thing that you said regarding, the running game, Philly running game being inconsistent.
I guess all I'm gonna say is I do think that Dak does give. I think both of us think that Dallas gives Dak gives Dallas a better shot to win. But personally, if Cooper Rush ever since week 2 to this week, if he was throwing for like 250, 300 yards, then sure, I would give it more thought. But I don't think he's eclipsed 200 yards since um since the since the Minnesota game. And obviously, if we were getting
He,
Minnesota, like,
he eclipsed 200 yards either against the Bengals or the Giants.
okay, so if he was doing that on a more consistent basis, then I would give it more of a thought. But I don't think that you're going to be able to go up against the 49ers or the Buccaneers when they eventually figure it out.
I mean, probably
Um,
not definitely not when they're turning the ball over. That was the
who?
thing last night is he turned it over 3 times and they were unable to overcome the deficit. So, um, yeah, never mind. But yeah, you're right. They definitely with Dak Prescott healthy and playing and playing to the caliber he can, they're definitely a better team than they are with Cooper Rush.
But I
Even
do
with
think,
the five.
yeah, I would prefer Dallas to lose this game. Just because if what?
Wait, the next game or the Philly
No,
game?
no, no. I'm saying the Philly game.
Okay.
I would prefer that they were to lose this game. And that's not because like, oh, I don't want to see Cooper Rush anymore. But I think that so I there were times where um I'm under the impression that if teams continue to win and they continue to win, they don't really they'll never be able to. So in it's the game is like a perfect example. They can look at film like, okay, like we were bad in this area, this area, this area, and we'll get better. If they did go back and win this game, I feel like the sense of urgency to go back and fix some things would be different. And that's not because of how I feel on the coaching staff. That's just I think like, oh, we played this bad and we won. Like, oh, that like we're not going to play that bad again in the future, so it's fine. And I think that this hopefully we'll be able to look back at this game in the next few weeks and they are better because of it, or this can be like a Denver Bronco game where the whole team gets figured out and then they're awful. So hopefully it's the first one, but please continue to the run game.
Yeah. That was kind of a perfect segue into my point on the running game because I mean the good, well coached teams, whether they win or lose, and however they win or lose, are going to address the issues that they had in the previous game. The Cowboys have been not able to address their running defense for the last 3 or 4 years, and I mean it's not horrendously bad, like as the stats show, but when the Eagles needed to run the ball, they were able to absolutely bully the Cowboys down front. And the whole thing about Micah Parsons being unable to learn or how to, get, I don't know, fix whatever he was doing, like read and reacting or being more disciplined or whatever, that's not, that's partially on the Cowboys for not coaching him properly or allowing him to just be a read and react player. It's also the Eagles knowing what they're going up against and using their style of play, which is read option, running the football, having the Hurts run the ball, having Sanders run the ball, having Boston Scott running the ball, and they were able to use their style of play against Micah Parsons, which is the reading his reaction and going the opposite direction. I don't know what Dan Quinn was thinking. He probably had the defense watching so much tape of the Eagles running their read option, and despite all of that, and probably telling Micah Parsons hundreds of times, you have to watch the ball. You can't react and assume he's handing it off. He's still, Micah Parsons was still following the wrong guy in the first half, and it really just baffles me how you could watch tape over and over and over again of the Eagles doing the same exact thing to other teams and go out there and do the exact opposite of what you're seeing in the film room. I mean, I know I'm not a player and I probably do the same. Like I'm not gonna say that it's easy to change that, but I mean they're good. They probably had a plan in place and they did like the exact opposite of that plan. And I mean, it wasn't a good showing for the entire defense. Did not really play well in that regard. So they're going to see the Eagles again, and later in the year, Dak Prescott is
December
most
24th.
great Christmas Eve. What a great way to start off. But Dak Prescott's probably going to be out there playing quarterback, so we'll see. I said at the beginning of the year that Dallas Cowboys were better than the Eagles because they have a better quarterback. We'll see if that pans out on Christmas Eve. But that's kind of all I have to say on the running game. It just when they did do a little bit better when they went on that run early third quarter, but when the defense needed to make the stop, the Eagles went right back to that running game, and the defense was nowhere to be found. And then you have, like I said, Trayvon Diggs slamming his helmet into the ground as AJ Brown just runs after Jalen Hurts or the running back, and they throw it right over the top of them to Devontae Smith. And honestly, when I saw that, I was like, bro, Trayvon, you probably would have done the exact same thing. And you would have chased Miles Sanders because that's what you do. You bite on the first thing you see, and then they throw it right over your head. And that's basically what happened to A.J. Brown. But the last thing I kind of want to say is the penalties in this game were so bad. It was just super annoying. I mean, you have Cooper Rush hits, I believe it was CeeDee Lamb for a first down, and then it gets called back because of a illegal formation. You got the tight end doing bunny hops, like trying to get to the right spot, and I'm thinking, do you not know where you're supposed to line up? And that was a 5-yard penalty. They did not get the first down there. There was a multiple holding penalties on Turpin's punt returns that pushed them back instead of starting at the Eagles 40 or their 40. They were starting at their 10 or 15, and putting and those two returns could have really changed the game, giving Cooper Rush a lot better field position. There was the
Dante Fowler, the individual infraction.
Fowler offsides. That was terrible. It was 4th down. They were probably going to kick a field goal. Instead, they end up getting a touchdown. That's 4 points. That could have changed the game also. Just the team being super undisciplined. Mike McCarthy continues to be one of the most having teams with the most penalties. That's most of those are just disciplined. I mean, they did get one break at the end of the game on CeeDee Lamb's catch that should have been a block in the back that they picked up the flag. But two quarters earlier, they got CeeDee Lamb for doing the exact same thing on a pass where that negated a first down also. So, the 10 penalties for 80 yards to the Eagles, 2 penalties for 10 yards or whatever it was. That's just once again, the opposite team is a lot better coached, a lot better disciplined, in a lot better place. And it's like you said, we don't need to address this because we think we can win. Penalties, stopping the run, and that's just kind of the difference between the Cowboys, who are very talented, and the Eagles. The Eagles are talented, but they're also disciplined. The Cowboys are talented, but they're not disciplined, and that's why the game turned out how it did. But the last point I kind of wanted to make was, I really hope that Dak Prescott is going to be much better than he showed week 1, because him walking out of the tunnel or into the tunnel, doing the clapping gesture or whatever or not, I was just thinking, I was like, yeah, you can be fired up, ready to get back, all that stuff, but you've looked like a clown against the Eagles too. And that was when he lost to Carson Wentz, who looks like an absolute joke now. Lost to Carson Wentz with practice squad receivers, 17-9. So, while Cooper Rush had a pretty poor game, Dak Prescott has played worse than Cooper Rush many times in his career. And I'm not saying that Cooper Rush should start over him. I think that the Cowboys should move on back to Dak Prescott. Cooper Rush is probably going to be either re-signed by the Cowboys for more money, or someone else is going to acquire him because he put enough good on tape to where teams are going to want him because of his winning record. And you can say that's foolish, but they did it for Case Keenum. They did it for Brock Osweiler. Nick Foles has been bouncing around the league because of his Super Bowl run. I mean, Joe Flacco has a job. Colt McCoy currently is the highest paid backup quarterback, and he's done basically nothing. So, like, teams are going to offer him more than the $800,000 salary that he's getting paid right now in Dallas. So that's just kind of the situation we're in. I want to see Dak Prescott play very well because honestly, the team is in a position right now where if we can get 80% of Dak Prescott, then they can beat pretty much anybody that they suit up against, other than maybe the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs. But that's about it. Any other team they can beat, but based on the coaching and the penalties and all that, I just that's going to be a hard thing to overcome. But it will be very disappointing if the Cowboys flame out with Dak Prescott again.
Yeah, especially with how poor the NFC is this year. Because if Dallas beats the Eagles, they're probably at least a top 2 seed, I think. I have to look at it, but just going based off assumption. Honestly, with the penalties, I think that they're just so boneheaded that you have to keep like the players accountable. Obviously, the coaching staff should do a better job, but at some
But
point in
it's
time,
like common knowledge that when you have the QB yelling like a madman, that they're probably trying to draw you off sides and not get you to they're not going to snap the ball. And then it also I missed this one. This didn't really have an impact on the game, but it was just so funny to me. It was like third and 1 or second and 1 or whatever, and they're all lining in for a QB sneak. And you got who I don't even know who his name is, but you got him like leaning so far low to the football, he's pretty much touching the football. His entire helmet is over the football. It's an obvious offsides, and they still just blow through the Cowboys defensive line. And I'm saying, I'm like, you were blatantly offsides and you're still unable to stop the QB sneak. That was just pretty funny to me. And then also the QB sneak where they had an illegal formation was also a very unfortunate. That's coaching right there. I mean, you know what formation you're supposed to line up in and for a QB sneak, and you know what's legal and what's not legal, and they lined up in an illegal formation, and instead of a first down, they had the punt. So that was just kind of that also hurt too. But I mean, sometimes the block in the backs, the holdings on kick returns, I mean, that's not necessarily the coach's fault. But I mean, the offsides penalties, the unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, the ineligible player downfield penalties, all that fun stuff is on the coaching. That's just like lack of discipline on your football team, which is on the coaching staff.
I think it's more on the players personally. The coaches can say, "Hey, like you can't do that, you can't do that." But if Mike McCarthy isn't suiting up on Sunday,
But why is
and
every other team who has a good coaching staff not doing that? Every time the Cowboys are in a big game, they're giving up 10, 15 penalties.
I do agree that the other teams are more disciplined and Dallas is not. But penalties have been I don't really know what the main. Obviously, neither of us are in the star, and not neither of us, or really no one besides the team, can really see what they do to manage their penalties. But the tight end doing bunny hops, that's on him. He should know where he has to be. Kellen Moore shouldn't be in his ear. Oh, you should line up to the left of the wide receiver or the right. Like if you made the team, you know the playbook, and you should know the playbook. The block in the back, sure, you could say that's like knowing when to take your hands off of the guy. Sure. But the only penalties that I'll kind of blame the coaching staff for are holdings, because they should be able to let their linemen know like when you need to stop or disengage. But I think all penalties are on the individual player, and the coaching staff can only do so much because they're not in their player's ear. But I do agree with you about the discipline. And sure, Mike McCarthy isn't a great coach, but I think a big part of the reason why Dallas is 4-2 instead of 1-5 is because of him, and the coaching staff. Obviously, he's not like the main reason why, but I think a big part of why they have been successful with the backup is because of him. But and we can have the coaching conversation another day, but there are only like 5 or 6 really good coaches out there. Obviously, I have to look at every team, but even coaches like coveted coaches like Cliff Kingsbury, like he's not all that great, and obviously the Cardinals aren't as successful as we thought they were.
No smart person thinks Cliff Kingsbury is a good head coach.
Well, I'm saying like coming out of college and how the Cardinals were in the after the Cardinals got D-Hop, I think that team was elevated, and obviously they beat Dallas last year, but
everyone beats Dallas.
But you can say that Mike McCarthy shouldn't be the coach until you come up with a good replacement. I have
Payton.
No idea, huh?
Sean Payton,
the man that put Dallas and that put the Saints in the depths of cap hell.
I'd rather be in cap hell and in the NFC Championship than with $35 trillion and being a first-round exit.
Dallas just got out of cap debt. I don't think they're going to be in a position.
Money. They don't spend money, so why would you get out of cap hell?
That's not on the head coach. That's on the front offices, their mentality and their thought. What teams should do is get better in free agency, then go into the draft and draft best player available. Dallas doesn't do that. Dallas waits until the second wave of free agency. They sign 1-year guys and they hope, like Jaron Kearse. No one thought that people did not think that he would be as important as he is. Malik Hooker didn't think he'd be as important as he is. Dallas just signs these guys, and they hope that they're going to turn out to be difference makers. And they go on to the draft, and like you and I know, they are like, okay, we want this player, and if they don't get that player, it's turmoil begins. And I hope that Dallas can make some type of moves before the trade deadline. I wrote it down. I forget where. I forgot who I sent it to. But if Dallas can trade for DJ Moore or a wide receiver, I would like that. If Dallas can get another corner, that'd be great. And then if Dallas can maybe get like someone on the defensive line that can really like a big guy just to stop the run. Obviously they have those guys, but that's what I would add. I doubt they're gonna do anything, but that's just my 2 cents on the matter.
Do you think Mike McCarthy is in Jerry Jones's office screaming for DJ Moore?
No, but Jerry Jones isn't going to allow that to happen. Like you and I have talked about, he makes all the decisions at the end of the day.
Right, not Stephen Jones. I'm glad we came to that agreement. That was an inadvertent trap that I set, not unknowingly, and it worked out because you said exactly what I needed. But look, the point about them doing the whole
Anderson. Breaking news. Robbie
Great.
Anderson's
I knew
out.
He was going to get cut.
Traded.
But anyway.
Cardinals traded for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, what I was going to say in regards to the whole free agent thing, the Cowboys look pretty good right now with how they played their cards. This season, they look totally fine. They've won 4 games. They're 1,000 times better than both of us thought, or well, that you thought. I thought they'd be around 3-3. They've won, I guess, 2 more games or 1 more game than I thought that they would win. So that's hoorah for them, I guess. But yeah, the Cowboys don't spend money because they don't have the type of person running the team, not running the team, running like the head coach who is going to be an individual.
Jimmy Johnson tried to be an individual, and he got ran out of town.
Exactly, but he was also in Jerry Jones's office every week telling him, I'm doing this, I'm running the team, I'm cutting this person, I'm signing. They won 3 Super Bowls, so it did work out.
I'm just saying that it was not
Jones kicked him
sustainable.
out, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Jerry Jones is not going to allow that to happen, and Mike McCarthy is that puppet. He's not going to go into Jerry's office campaigning for DJ Moore. Not going to go into Jerry Jones' office campaigning for Von Miller.
Jerry says something after. Von Miller, Dallas gave him a contract. Von Miller just didn't like the contract. They sent him something. He just didn't like it. Same thing Randy Gregory, which I'm happy they did.
Probably chump change.
No,
it just wasn't. Look what Von Miller is doing for Buffalo.
It just because he's not worth 6 years. He's an older player. 6 years, all that guaranteed money. It's gonna. At some point in time, you can't just throw money at a guy. Sure, Von Miller would help. He would help, but Dallas isn't yearning for sacks.
They're yearning for championships, and Von Miller is a championship caliber player who was one of the main reasons why they won the Super Bowl last year. And the Bills paid him the hefty contract because they're like, this is the type of player that gets us over the edge, that gets in Patrick Mahomes' face, makes him do dumb things and throw interceptions. And we need a guy to make plays in the fourth quarters of big games, which the Cowboys do not currently have a lot of those players right now. And
so they don't have players.
They currently do not have a lot of players who make big plays in big games in the fourth quarter. They need more of those players. And Von Miller, whether you don't want giving him 6 years or whatever, or I don't want to pay him a lot of money for 6 years when he's going to probably retire in 3 or 4 years. But guess what? If you get a Von Miller type player, you have a lot better chance of winning the Super Bowl with Von Miller than you do with Bobby Wagner or Anthony Barr. And we haven't really seen Anthony Barr do really anything that dramatic in the time that he's been in Dallas. So on it, like Buffalo, like we've seen every game Von Miller destroy opposing defenses, meaning 1, he's still playing at a high level, 2, he was worth every penny that they've spent, and 3, that the Buffalo Bills did not make a bad investment on Von Miller. I think if the Cowboys had a head coach who was big on improving in free agency, which Sean Payton is, or really any coach, they would be spending.
They would not have signed him. If he was big on that, they would not have hired him.
They would.
Huh? What I'm saying is that if he had that type of mentality, they would not have hired him.
If he had a mentality, but he hasn't been hired. He's not coaching.
No. I'm saying that if a coach had a mentality of let's get better in free agency, Dallas would not have hired him. That's what I'm saying, because he differs from what the front office wants.
Well, that's the problem.
Sean Payton is a splash guy. He's a big name guy.
He's a big name guy who was in the NFC Championship game 3 out of the 4 last few years he coached, and was a bogus penalty away from making the Super Bowl. a dumb play by his rookie safety for making another Super Bowl. Not Super Bowl, NFC NFC
If
Championship
he
game.
would have coached his players better, then that
He's not the
wouldn't have
defensive
happened.
coach. He's not the. That's on the
He's the
defensive
head coach,
coordinator.
though. He is the
He's not a
head coach.
defensive coach.
He's the
He's
head
not.
coach. If he would have told his defensive coordinator to
You're
watch
right.
out
You're
for
right.
Williams,
If he had not,
exactly.
you're right. If he had not been in cap hell, he wouldn't have. If he was smart, he would have realized he was in cap hell and not drafted the rookie because it would have been too expensive.
No,
and
what
waited
I'm
to the
saying
next round to
is
draft him to sign a undrafted guy, and then start the undrafted guy at safety, and then they would have been getting burned off the field
precisely.
and not been in the postseason because they would be giving up 300-yard games to wide receivers.
You know me so well. Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dallas moves on to Detroit. They get to go face Jared Goff and Dan Campbell. And I'm sure for all you fantasy people out there, please pick up or start DeAndre Swift. The end, it's just please start him.
I have him on my fantasy team. Is that a bad thing? Should I drop him? Is that
I think
am I
you'd be insane
for
to
starting the? I had Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts as my QB and receiver last night, and someone texted me saying, "Since you're a diehard Cowboys fan, you should have benched them." And I responded with, "I care. I am not doing an end of the year fantasy punishment, therefore I do not care." So, as much as I love the Cowboys, I was not 1,000% upset when Devontae Smith caught the touchdown pass because it basically won me the week.
This is fair. We will be back later in the week to talk about
Thursday at 11 a.m.
Yes, talk
Friday
about
2 p.m.
Yeah, Friday. Yes, yeah. You confused me for a second. Talk about that game, and obviously we were not able to talk about the Rams breakdown. I think that was the game. We will talk about it late on Friday. We'll talk about it for a few minutes. We will talk about Dorrance Armstrong and his fantastic play. We will talk about. We'll talk about the team. I don't know
as much as you're hating on Cooper Rush today, he could be Matthew Stafford, who's had like 6 pick sixes I think he's basically had a pick six every game he's played this year.
Didn't someone on this podcast say that Matthew Stafford was not all that great? I think someone said that. I'm not sure who.
Well, that person is still wrong because he's a Super Bowl champion, and
there are plenty of Super Bowl quarterbacks that were not all that.
You're right. Their names were Trent Dilfer. Their names were Trent Dilfer, but Matthew Stafford Matthew Stafford is here, and Trent Dilfer is down here by my.
Right now, Matthew Stafford is like leading the league in picks, which he usually does.
Well, maybe if they sign Eric Fisher off the practice squad and bring back what's his face who just retired, they might be able to protect him for more than 0.57.
Great quarterbacks find a way.
You're right. Just like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, who look like total bums because their personnel. Well, Tom Brady looks like a total bum because he stinks, and Aaron Rodgers looks like a total bum because his wide receivers are from can't catch the football university.
I would definitely take.
They should have ran the ball on. They should have ran the football on the Jets. They should have given it to Aaron Jones. I'll ignore that. They should have just done that. That would have been a great idea. But the Jets and the Giants are better than the Cowboys. What a sight to behold.
Record-wise, sure, but not. I would love to see Dallas play the Giants or the Jets and see how that goes.
Yes, Zach Wilson will be never. I'm not gonna. Never mind.
Well, we will be back.
Let's end this before we say anything dumb.
We will be back for the Lions game. Dallas, the last 2 times Dallas played the Lions, I believe Dallas won both times.
Maybe David Blau and Matthew Stafford.
So Jared Goff, get ready. Yeah,
Shootout.
it's a shootout of Dak. If Dak will be playing, I think it'll be a game. If Cooper Rush is playing, it'll be a shootout of like 10-7.
That's what we need. Those are the shootouts I enjoy.
It's a defensive shootout. Anything you want to say before our Monday's pickup?
Um, take a long, hard look at that man right there behind me. That's the last time you're going to see him this season.
Who knows? Week 18, if Dallas already has a playoff spot locked up, we might see him.
We're not going to see him again.
We'll see Will Greer. Who knows?
Yep.
If Rush is not re-signed, we could see Ben DiNucci come back.
He's not coming back.
Oh, Ben. But
He's
thank you,
selling
everyone.
some clothes. He's selling some clothes.
Hey, do not diss that man's hats. I've been wanting to buy one for forever. I just can't. They're always sold out. I did, however, buy.
Maybe he's not giving you his hats because he knows you're a hater.
I am a big fan of Ben DiNucci. I'm a big fan. Well, thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back on Friday. It's Friday to talk about the Detroit Lions up against your Dallas Cowboys. And any final words, Ray, before we leave?
No final words.
Go Cowboys, y'all. Have a great rest of your week.
Go Cowboys.